Andrew, are you back in?
I am back in, yes.
Okay. And then will you want me to stop the recording before you leave your phone number at the end, or?
So it's okay. I don't mind leaving my number on there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I'll start the recording now, and then you can start your 20 minutes.
Okay. Maybe I'll. Okay. And you'll can you give me a reminder, like at 5 minutes or something like that? 5 minutes
Yes.
left?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
The recording has started.
Yes, hello, my name is Andrew, and I am a compulsive overeater, and I'm very grateful to get to share my story with you guys tonight. And just for some facts, my weight currently is about 150, but my top weight was about 175, so the food was never, it didn't add tremendous amounts of weight to my body. What was really going on was this obsession, a compulsion, and isolation, and terrible depression, and even desperation. But I would play so much basketball, and I would lift weights, and I was always into like keeping in shape. So I would perspire, and I didn't put on a lot of weight, but I carried hundreds of pounds of baggage, and I would sneak and eat, and I grew up in a family that we didn't really have a very strong sense of religion. I think my dad was sometimes, kind of sort of an atheist, and and my parents were, they struggled, separated when I was 8, divorced when I was 12, and there was a lot of chaos, a lot of like arguing, and it was not the most pleasant environment, but I could always count on food. The cabinets were never locked, and the refrigerator was never locked. And so I learned, watching my parents, that food could be counted on. And so if anything, if there was a God, it was food. And so I would, just go to it. And then it would comfort me when I was sad, and it would keep me company when I was lonely. And when I was overly excited, it would calm me down. And when I was bored, it just did everything, and it worked. Halloween was my favorite holiday, I'd try to get as much time pounding the pavement as I could, and I would go out with friends after eating dinner, and we lived in New Jersey, so we would all end up at a diner, and everyone would order like a little of this, a little of that, and I would have the such and such deluxe, which was my second dinner, and then after I got home, I'd go for some more food, and I just loved to eat. It was wonderful. But after a while, friends could be rejecting, and sometimes I felt very insecure, and I didn't feel smart, and often. So I found a couple buddies named Ben and Jerry, and if I just stayed in with them and the television, maybe something sweet to eat, they didn't reject me. They were always accepting and loving. And after a while, my friends, they weren't really calling me to invite me out that much anyway, but that's fine. I don't really need them. I got my buddies right here. So things started to progress, and I can remember things getting kind of ugly. On one occasion, I could not binge at night, and I'd wake up in the morning feeling horrendous and promise that I wouldn't do it again, and then I would certainly do it again. And once I was, I had a lot of solutions. Let me say that first. I had a lot of solutions. One of them was I was going to study psychology, and one of the solutions was going to be yoga, which I got very into, and actually proved to be very helpful, but it didn't really solve the problem of my compulsive overeating. And I remember, I got into a graduate program. I was going to become a clinical psychologist, and then I decided I wanted to become a yogi instead. So I moved out to Massachusetts to live in a yoga center, and but people said, listen, if you really want to learn what this yogi's teaching, you got to work your program, you got to work your 12-step program. So I used to kind of slip out the back door and go to meetings in town. I had already been introduced to meetings well before that, but I moved to Massachusetts in about 1990, and I remember going out and binging at times, and And I said to myself, gosh, you can binge while you're in the car, but just don't, do it while you're driving, because this is getting dangerous. You drop a French fry, you reach down, and I reach down and grab it. The horn beeps at me. People are crossing the street. Maybe they look at me funny. So I committed to myself, listen, I'm not going to eat while I'm driving. And that lasted at least a day before I was, just right there again. I couldn't stop it. I didn't have that control. And it felt terrible to know I was out of control. It made me feel terribly insecure. I tried many different approaches to deal with it. I was jogging in the morning, and I tried bets, but it was just an awful experience. And I realized at a certain point that I didn't really form intimate relationships with other people the way some others did. People after a long time together, they might cry and hug. I'm going to miss you. I feel terrible. And for me, it was just like goodbye. And they said goodbye to me. I didn't have these kinds of connections. And I realized later on that, of course not. I was an addict. An addict always puts their substance in between them and their relationships. The substance comes first, and that was food for me. So, it was really what got me to change was desperation. I was in OA, and I had been in there since 1990, I believe, and in 1997 I was living out in Massachusetts, and there was this group called HOW, and they stood for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That's what HOW stands for. It's in the big book, and they were doing no sugar, no flour, weighed and measured food from a food plan, and 3 phone calls a day, 3 meetings or more a week. Get a sponsor, call each day. It was just incredibly intense, and I found the group very just kind of intense. But so I resisted it for a long time until I reached that point of terrible desperation where I said, "Listen, I'll do anything. I can't do this anymore." I was having thoughts of how life was not worth it, and just not, I wasn't enjoying the process. So anyway, I got with that program, and I've been abstinent since 1997. So I was in program about 7 years before I got abstinent, and now it's been, I guess it's 22, 23 years. My life is a very different story, and I just want to tell you, I guess, I covered what I was like and what happened to change me. It was really desperation and continuing to stay in program even though I couldn't get it. I saw some people seem to get it quickly, and here I am 7 years not seeming to get it. But I started to study the big book, and today, I have a different life. I really, for the most part, I am happy and joyous and free, and I feel like the promises of the program have come true. There are prayers that I use, like the 3rd-step prayer and the 7th-step prayer. These are with me daily, and I just, I won't read the prayers right now, but there were also some slogans that really helped me. Halt, first things first, live and let live, resign from the debating society, sought through knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. There are pages from the big book that I still read every morning, page 69, page 86, I find helpful. And I'm just very grateful. I have a wife, a son, I've got a business. I live in Long Island, and right now things are a little bit tense, as you guys probably know, not just here, but in other places too. And, I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm working my program. I read in the big book that, soldiers go out to war and they bring their God with them. I learned how to have another God. My God was food. It worked for a while, and eventually I had to give it up and find another God. Right? And people said, find a higher power that works for you. And that's what I did. And at first it may have been the group, but then I realized people in the group can always let me down sometimes. But there's only one. There's a power that's always with me, always ready to help me, that loves me, cares for me, and that's the God of my understanding. And today it really is the center of my life. And I'm just not interested in binging. It's just it has no appeal to me, because what I taste is so much sweeter and so much more satisfying than all that junk that I used to eat as much as I wanted. Now I eat my 3 meals a day. I enjoy those meals thoroughly, and maybe have a snack. I still don't eat sugar. I don't eat flour. I have a digital scale in my kitchen that helps keep me honest, because digital scales don't really lie. The other kind of scales, you can kind of lean to the left or the right and change the weight a little bit, or at least the way it looks. So I'm very grateful that there's the possibility of friendship. I mentioned that it's hard for someone who's a pretty intense addict to have friendships, but I see little kernel, little possibilities coming about of friendships that I might form and satisfying relationships. Today I have to avoid self-pity, self-seeking motives, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. These are things that I have to stay away from, and I ask God to help me. You see, I was freed from some terrible addiction, food addiction, and I got free with the help of a higher power, but not so that I can go worship something else, like gambling or women or something else instead of food. It's like I have to, be thankful that I've got this higher power that helped me, and my job is to do whatever I possibly can, one day at a time, to do what I think that higher power wants me to do. So I pray and meditate each morning for about half an hour. I have a number of prayers that I say. I mentioned the third step, seventh-step prayer, Roseanne's prayer. It says in the big book, it's easy to rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do. So I constantly do need to ask to look inward and see what my motives are. And, I used to read the promises and be like, wow, could that possibly happen? And now, I'm going to read through it. I think I have it right here in front of me. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. The feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. It's amazing. This thing actually works. We've got something that works here. And I guess I could just rave about it, but it's really kind of weird how I'm just not interested in food and other problems that I have. I kind of have a system now. It's like, oh yeah, my God, instead of telling instead of telling God how big your problems are, why don't you tell your problems how big your God is? And it's like it's a confidence that I walk with now. That what, if I try to do the right thing, if I try to seek God's will for me and say thy will be done many times during the day, I've got a lot of strength behind me. I've got you guys, I've got everyone else in 12-step programs, I've got religious people all around that are, striving, and all kinds of other forces that can't be seen. There's a quote that comes to my mind that I really like, that Einstein said. He said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So it's this unseen, or sometimes seen God, this higher power, it's at work. And if I do right by the God of my understanding, things just tend to go well. They tend to work out. So right now we're in this crisis. What's going on with this? I'm not going to try to explain it, but I believe that underlying there's a lot of goodness and love. And that's the God of my understanding, and that things will work out. And I know in some cases crisis comes really because something has to change. And I don't really know, but maybe something had to change, and this is going to bring about some change that needs to happen. And in some ways, it's the less painful path, even though it certainly doesn't look that way for people that are suffering and having family members that are dying. And I don't know, but I do know that what does God want me to do now? He wants me to try to be positive and constructive and be a part of the solution. And that means I have to stay away from things like fear, doubt, intense insecurity, anger, rage, blaming, scapegoating, which often results in violence to others. These things create additional problems for me and in the world around me. So my job is to be kind and helpful to others wherever I can and try to alleviate hunger, pain, suffering. And I want to keep my immune system well. I was writing today, so I've got some extra writing here. But it says eat well, get rest, and practice, well, for me, I'm a yoga person, so practice yoga or some other form of safe exercise. This will build the strongest immune system within us and also prepare us to do our part in the building of something new that lies ahead. I mentioned earlier that yoga has become a huge part of my life. That's what I do for a living. And, yoga means yoke. Well, what is yoke? It's about union. Yoke means union. Union with what? It's union with God. So that's why it works very well for me. It's like that, the 12 steps, my religion. I just feel like they all kind of work together. And so I want to, associate with people that are trying to, my teacher said company is stronger than willpower. So if you want to go to a certain destination, get with other people that are going the same direction, because you'll get there much faster. So, a couple of prayers that I'll share if I still have
you got
a couple of, yep.
Yeah, you got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So here's a couple of prayers that I'll throw out, and then closing words, and here's a long version of the Serenity Prayer that's really helped me over time, and I love it. Say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference, patience with the changes that take time, gratitude for all that I have, tolerance for those with different struggles, and the strength to get up and try again, one day at a time. It's a good reminder that other people suffer from things that I don't suffer from, and I should have tolerance, because, listen, not everyone's a compulsive overeater. I understand compulsive overeaters very well, but I don't understand drug addicts and alcoholics and some other addictions, but people have all kinds of addictions. People are addicted to power and all kinds of variations, but how can I help those people? How can I be helpful? Here's another prayer that I saw in one of our books. Actually, some of you may recognize it, but it's a Sanskrit proverb, and this helps me too. And I think it's so important right now. It just tells me what to do, and that's focus on this day. So here's the proverb. It says, "Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lies all the realities and verities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day." So that prayer kind of says it all. It's like, the way we say it in program is one day at a time. One day at a time. It's all about just focusing on today, doing all that I can for my recovery and to be helpful to the people that God has put in my life and on my path. And, I just hope I continue. And it's just a beautiful life that this program has given me. And without it, I was really going nowhere, and I was kind of hurting there. So I think I've covered the territory, and it's unlike me to stop talking until I'm absolutely, I usually take every last second, something about moving my mouth. If I can't eat, then at least I'm moving my mouth in some other way. But I think I'm gonna, this change is possible, so I'm gonna say thank you. I'm gonna end my sharing, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and thank you for listening.
Hey, thank